What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It's Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. And first of all, regarding Friday and yesterday, I had some doctor stuff come up. Friday, I was supposed to have an appointment in the morning. At the last second, they gave me the choice of coming in during the broadcast, or we're waiting until November. So I had to kind of go for it. And yesterday was just a case of having to go in for more medical tests, which all came back good. And they insist I'm getting better. Doesn't feel like it, but they insist I'm getting better. So, and then of course today, for those of you who've already emailed me, I woke up to find that SiteGround had managed to butcher my site, and we're still working to get that back online. So what we're going to do today here, I think, because I didn't have the time to normally do the prep that I would normally do, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines for the entire show, so you can call in whenever you feel like it and talk about whatever you feel like talking about. We're kind of waiting here on the announcement from Biden's campaign. They have selected the VP running mate. They haven't announced it yet. They're trying to build the drama and the suspense and get that going in there. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that and find out who's going to join them on the ticket. And of course, it's kind of an important choice. Normally, vice presidents, you don't pay much attention to them. John Adams called it the most boring job in the world. Apparently, Kamala Harris has been getting advice to turn down the vice presidency if it's offered to her and hold out instead for attorney general, which would have a lot more power. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Fox News is saying the top contenders are Harris, Duckworth, Demings, Duckworth, and they just pulled the graphics, so I couldn't read the rest of those things. Alrighty, so what happened over this last extended weekend while I was busy getting needles stuck in me, and I still got bruises all over me? Well, obviously we had the 75th anniversary of the world's two atomic attacks, one on Hiroshima with the Little Boy bomb, and the other one on Nagasaki with Fat Boy. And Little Boy was, of course, Fat Man. The Little Boy was, of course, the uranium bomb, which, while simple, is not a very popular design, because the trick to making a uranium bomb isn't getting it to detonate when you want it to. It's making sure it doesn't detonate until you want it to. And there were several very bad accidents during the development of the uranium bomb, which is why they moved on to preferring the plutonium bomb over the uranium bomb there. So 75 years ago, these two cities were wiped out, and the debate continues to this very day. Was it really necessary to do? Now, Harry Truman, in his memoirs, wrote that his concern was invading the home islands of Japan would have cost more in lives than the use of the atomic bomb, and that's why he decided to use it. Well, the problem is, at that point, Japan was already trying to surrender. When Russia came in, when Russia joined the Allies against Japan, they were licked. They couldn't possibly deal with that. They were going to have to surrender. And I remember one of the emperor's sons, very high political official, was literally blocked from entering where the Allies were meeting, because his job was to go on there and say, we wish to seek terms for surrender. But Truman decided he wanted to use the bomb, and in hindsight, it appears that, first of all, they wanted to demonstrate to the world, first of all, that the United States had such a horrible weapon, and more importantly, the political will to use it. And so they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and 2 days later, they dropped the bomb, 3 days later, they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. So that was 75 years ago. And as is always the case, every time these anniversaries roll around, you have people standing up and saying, it really is time to get rid of these nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, that's easier said than done, simply because they are fairly easy to build. Once you get hold of the fissionable material, once you get hold of the weapons-grade uranium or the weapons-grade plutonium, that's it. The rest is just precision machining. And everybody knows how to make an atomic bomb these days. You can actually buy the original blueprints for Fat Man and Little Boy as a wall poster, if you're at all interested in that sort of thing. But as far as the Little Boy uranium bomb is concerned, it's a tube with two subcritical masses of weapons-grade uranium at either end. They slap together in the middle and it goes off. That's the secret of the uranium bomb. So you're all a nuclear threat now. So Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said it is necessary to rule out the possibility of nuclear war, and he's absolutely right. Because what we saw happen at Hiroshima and Nagasaki were just two very small, like I think 15 kiloton was the size of the nuclear bomb dropped on these two cities. And now, of course, bombs are built in the megaton range. And recently there's been a push to what are called the tactical nukes. Instead of the strategic city buster, military base buster, they want to go to smaller nukes that are easier to use, which unfortunately means they will be used. And so I think the standard W-64 warhead, it's an adjustable yield weapon, and it tops out at 150 kilotons, or 10 times the force of Hiroshima. And they're unfortunately out there. John Pilger was out there writing an article saying that another Hiroshima is coming unless we work to stop it now. And I'm in agreement there. First of all war is bad. And war basically represents a failure of diplomacy. And there's a wonderful line from the movie Crimson Tide, where they're discussing von Clausewitz and his philosophy of war. And Denzel Washington's character comes on out and he says, in the nuclear age, the enemy is war itself. I think that was the best line in the entire movie. Because he's absolutely right. If we've all been shown the horrors of what a global nuclear war could be. We've shown how easy and quick one could actually happen in yet another movie, War Games, which was based, by the way, on a true incident. We've been very close to firing off the nukes at the other countries on more than one occasion. And it seems like it's only a matter of time. So let's see, article from Global Research up in Canada. Was President Harry Truman a murderer? As the renowned British analytic philosopher Gertrude Elizabeth Anscombe once charged, were the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki a war crime and a crime against humanity? Well, yes, because Truman leveled two cities full of civilians. The vast majority of people who died in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki either vaporized the instant of the detonation or dying horribly of radiation sickness afterwards. They were civilians. They were non-combatants. You're not supposed to do that in a civilized war. Not that war is civilized. The veneer of civilization is to make it easier for the people carrying out the war to live with what they've done afterwards. I forget who once said it, but there was a military commander who said the importance of following the rules of war is not for the benefit of the enemy, it's for the benefit of your own people, so that they can live with what they've had to do. If they know they followed the rules, then they can live with what they had to do. If they don't follow the rules, they will pay a horrible price for it later on in life, and they will. They really will. Some of the people that I knew that came back from Vietnam as the years wore on, they started talking about what it was they'd done and had to do and felt they had to do, and terrible regrets they had about it. You know, as a thought, an experiment might be to find somebody who's a veteran of Big Mistake number 2. There's hardly any left from Big Mistake number 1, or Vietnam or Korea, and just say, how do you feel about what you did? Or even you could find veterans from Iraq who are very unhappy with what they've done, because they realize this was not about protecting America. It was not about, you know, bringing the American way of life to all of these other countries, especially looking around today. The American way of life isn't really all that good. Anyway, let's take a phone call here. Don in Arizona. Aloha, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Mike. Yeah, the breaking news, Biden picked the VP, but he can't make the announcement because he already forgot who he picked.
Touche.
Really...
Touche. Well, see, that's why he's supposed to write those down on that white sleeve of, you know, the shirt. You know, my VP pick is Sears and
That's
Roebuck.
a joke. It shouldn't be. I mean, it's amazing. People are joking about it. But he can't remember anything, I don't think.
Well,
So
that's
anyway,
why this choice is important, because even most Democrats don't think he's going to make it through the first four-year term.
right. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen. If he does get elected, and he might, they could just immediately. I still think he could drop out before it starts to.
He still could.
Like
Personally, I don't think he's got that much of a chance of winning. My concern right now is looking what's happening at Belarus. And they've had an election there, and the incumbent has won a sixth term, supposedly. But the Belarusians are out there convinced the election was rigged. And we're going into an election that very obviously is going to be rigged. And now there's violence all over the country. We could see that happen here in November.
No telling what's going to happen, but I really, in my mind, I think it's better for the Republicans. I used to be a Democrat, but I vote the Republican ticket because it's not just Trump at the Senate. If the Democrats get the Senate and the House and the presidency, they already got their plan. They'll eliminate the filibuster. That means they can do whatever they want. They'll stack the Supreme Court, which that can be done. And they'll also make Washington D.C. a state, so they'll always have 2 extra senators from then on. They'll always be Democrat, and it'll be a one-party system. That's what their plan is. It'll be a communist, totalitarian state. And by eliminating the filibuster, see, the Republicans would never do that. McConnell would never do that. So it always takes 60 votes to do anything in the Senate. So, yeah. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think a lot of people say there's no difference. Biden is just another clone of Trump or whatever, but there is a difference, I believe, and I don't want to live under. The country's going straight down the tubes no matter who gets elected. But I think there's a difference between the GOP and the Democrats. That's all I got, though, Mike. I'll let you go. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. Thank you for the phone call. The phone lines were open, 800-313-9443. That was funny. Biden has chosen a vice president, but can't remember which one. All righty. Up in New York, we talked about this end of last week, Thursday, I think it was. The Attorney General, Letitia James, is filing a lawsuit to dissolve the National Rifle Association that accuses the leadership of the flagging nonprofit of diverting millions of dollars for their own personal use. I don't know if that's true or not. Could very well be. But all the NRA needs to do is go and reform in a different state with perhaps a little bit more tolerance for Second Amendment rights. But according to the lawsuit, the senior leadership of the NRA squandered millions in donations on personal trips, private jets, and expensive meals. The suit argues that the 4 executives, including CEO Wayne LaPierre, shouldn't be permitted to ever again serve on the board of a New York charity. Well, all they'll do is they'll force it to go someplace else, like Texas, or even here in Indiana. Very gun-friendly state, Indiana. All right, we're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, good day. Glad to have you back. I think the last test Biden's doing right now is a smell test. Smell in their hair, see which one will pass the smell test.
Boy, there's a lot of good. Boy, the one reason Biden should be elected president is because all the stand-up comedians would have all that new material to work with.
You ain't kidding about that, Mike. That's absolutely right. But here, Mike, let's really talk what's the latest that's going on in Chicago, Mike. The Magnificent Mile burn up, looted, and you got these blacks and these leaders of the BLM who are funded by Soros, and they're saying we're going to get reparations one way or another. We had nothing to do with slavery, Mike. Not even 1/10 of 1% of the white population of this country had anything to do with slavery. The biggest slave owners in the South are black men. If you're going to protest all the blacks that own slaves. In Africa, still to this day, and the ones who are on the plantations in the South in 1860, they were black men, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out on your computers. You'll see who the biggest 3 black slave traders were. But yeah, Mike, it's really disgusting what's going on in Chicago. Disgusting in Portland, Seattle. You got these criminals, these Antifa communists. Let's call them what they really are, Mike. They are communists. They're not socialists. When we come up with this crap, they're socialists. They're communists, just like in Venezuela, Cuba, same thing, same cloth. And you know, Mike, to see that mayor, that lesbian mayor, the lesbians are running BLM. They got a lot of lesbians in a lot of these cities as mayors, in homosexual men. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, we've lost basically the country, Mike. Maybe we're gonna need a major cleansing here, because if they can, Mike, they're gonna they're definitely going after the guns, like you've been saying for a long time. They're going after our guns, for sure.
Yes.
How do you feel, Mike?
Well, I've always been opposed to the idea of there being some kind of violence in the streets of America, although obviously I have failed in that, as we're seeing in places like Portland. I really do think that the next revolution to hit this country is going to be fought primarily with keyboards. And I hope to keep it virtual so that the little kids don't have to worry about getting hit by stray bullets as they play in the streets. Yeah.
Well, you know, they just had on OAN, One American News right now, they have a vaccine basically for the corona. And it only costs 12 cents. So I think it's made out of something like out of penicillin. And now they're saying that the tablets cost 12 cents a piece. And it takes like 6 of them, and you can actually get rid of coronavirus. And it's really a major breakthrough. I guess that just broke on they're waiting for the VP pick here. Looks like it's going to be Kamala or white on rice Biden. Like whatever one smells whatever his hair smells best to Biden, I think he's going to pick. But I really think that. Oh, and by the way, I didn't notice, Mike. Did you know that Susan Rice has a son that's white or something, and he's going to vote for Trump? Did you hear about that?
I heard about that. I hate to be sitting at dinner at that house.
Yeah, she's got a white kid, and the kid likes Trump. I thought that was really interesting to see that on the news. But of course, you got Kamala Harris, who she's the governor of San Francisco said he got a tune-up from her. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
That she gave him a tune-up before. I don't know if she was married to her. She's married to a white guy, Mike. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if she did that while she was married to this guy, or before she got married to this white guy. She was with Willie Brown. You heard about that, right?
Yes, I've heard about that one.
So that's going to be interesting. Maybe that's why Joe's going to pick her too, maybe, I'm thinking. Because, we could have another Monica situation, or who knows. But this whole thing is turning out to be a real joke as far as the vice presidential pick and all this. They're dragging it out. Oh, Biden's Mike, in the real sense of the matter, this guy Biden's dead in the head. His brain is shot. It's totally gone. I mean, you look at him, he bumbles, he fumbles. It's unreal. And if people would vote for this guy over a guy who wants law and order. I mean, Mike, if Biden gets in there, I believe all the city's going to be in flames. All of them. I really mean it. Oh, okay. By the way, Mike, here in South Florida, a couple of the newspapers reported that if any looting breaks out down here in South Florida, that the truck drivers are not going to come down and bring food and petrol down here. They're going to cut it off on I-95 and I guess other routes in here. So if there's any kind of violence toward these truck drivers, Mike, I think you're going to have all-out civil war. I really mean that. If you can't deliver the food, water, petroleum, we're really looking at something that's going to be chaotic. It's going to be off the chain. And the gun sales are off the charts right now. Matter of fact, in some of the cities, Mike, most of the guns being sold, I saw in, I think it was Breitbart, are black. A lot of blacks are buying guns like crazy now because they're tired of the crime. Upstanding black people are getting fed up with the crime rate in their cities, in their communities. So it's going to be interesting how it's going to play out. I tell you, Mike, what they did to Chicago, I don't think Chicago's ever coming back. I think it's going to end up like Detroit, Michigan. Mike, Detroit was the richest city in the United States in 19.
Okay. Tom, can you stay on the line?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, apparently Biden, Kamala Harris, she's coming across the TV right now. Biden has picked Kamala Harris as his vice president. We'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. And just now breaking, Joe Biden names Kamala Harris as his vice presidential pick. And So, I mean, that's the big headline news right now in the corporate media. Like nothing else is going on in the world. Anyway, getting on back to Tom in Florida. Tom, you just pick up where you left off, and we've got callers waiting on the line. So brevity is the soul of it.
Yeah, Michael, I believe she's the one that's passed the smell test, the hair test.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think that's real good news for Trump. I think it's going to really be good news that Biden picked her because, listen, Tulsi Gabbard tore her up real good. And, she tore Biden up here in Miami. When they had the first debate, Kamala said he's not even fit to be president and about busing and all that. So now when Trump starts running those ads, and this woman's only she's only out for power, this Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Okay, she was an immigrant or something. I don't know. I think her husband's a white guy. And I don't know what the kids are.
Wait a minute. That could be a problem. If she's not a natural born citizen, it means that if Biden steps down, she can't assume the presidency.
That's correct. We're gonna have to see how this is gonna play out, Mike. And like I said, I think it's gonna play well for Trump.
The House in the Oval Office. Yeah, President Pelosi. How do you like them apples?
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? But listen, Mike. I think that's good news for Trump. I think Trump would have had a harder time against Rice. I think Kamala. Remember, she was tearing Joe up about busing, and he's kind of like a racist and all that. Now how they're gonna spin this, I don't know. But I really think that plays good for Trump. Kamala Harris is a fake. She's a Californian. She's a phony, baloney. And I think that's going to play well. And especially with all this rioting going on. And, where's the law and order with Biden? He hasn't said one thing, Mike, about all the burning and looting of these cities. This guy is a clown, and it's a freak show what's going on. And, however, Mike, these American kids, black and white, don't even know how to write cursive. They don't even know how to do anything in these schools. The schools have these totally white kids.
Tom?
Mike, they don't know about history.
Okay, Tom,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but I just did a quick check on it. Kamala Harris was born in Oakland, California, so she's qualified to be the president if Biden steps down.
Well, I know I guess her parents came. Maybe it wasn't her, but I know her parents came from maybe she was born here. That's like they said Obama was born in Milwaukee.
She was born in Oakland.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to be born. And look at Oakland right now, Mike. What's going on over there?
Yeah, but under the rules, we all got to play by the rules. And the rules say that, yes, she can serve as president of the United States of America. She's a natural-born U.S. citizen.
Well, like I said, Mike, yeah, okay. But I still think it's going to play good for Trump that Biden picked her because, look, another thing, Mike, this coronavirus thing, I think it's going to wind down because like I told you about 1968, you have callers calling you. 1968, the virus is way worse here in this country than it is now. And nobody wore masks, hardly. Matter of fact, all the kids never went out of school for months in 1968 in the Hong Kong flu, Mike. And it killed 600,000 Americans. All of a sudden, over 150,000 Americans died in all these months' time. And you got all the schools closed. None of the kids are going to school. They don't want to. They're not teaching the kids about history. In 1968, what happened then? People kept going to school. People kept going to work. This is all a big farce to try to get Biden in there. Yes, there's come a virus. There's going to be a flu season coming up at us. Okay, but people die when they're in their 60s. They get sick, and if they're not taking care of themselves, and they're in nursing homes when people are really sick, of course they're going to die. And I really believe they'll have a vaccine. I don't believe you need a vaccine, Mike. I think they got pills like chloroquine and all that can knock the virus out if you catch it early enough. So this whole thing is just a sham in my book. Yeah, people talk about masks and all that. I hear masks are not even good for you. I don't know what to believe. It's unbelievable. Now you got to hear the mayor here in South Florida, Mike. He wants you to wear 24 hours of mask. I get to see that. You're in your house. You got to wear your mask all day long and all night. What insanity! So I think it bodes well for Trump getting reelected. I'm praying that he does because it'll be a nightmare if Biden gets in there, Mike. All the cities will be in flames. I believe the truckers won't even want to deliver food, water, petroleum.
Yep.
This Green New Deal will wipe us totally out. I mean, this country will be in total anarchy and total chaos. It'll be a cataclysmic, I guess you could say, or a catastrophe, whatever. But we'll see how it plays out. I may get other calls. I'll let you go, Mike. But I'm glad you're back on this week. And like I said, with the gun, you're a citizen. Without the gun, you're a subject. And we'll see what the NRA does. Because I know I guess they're suing New York right now, so I don't know how that's going to play out. But I believe I didn't know.
This is going to be in the courts for a long time. But frankly, I think the NRA would be better off filing for status as a whole new organization in a more gun-friendly state like Texas. Okay.
Well, you may be right. You're probably right on that. I have to agree with that. Okay, Mike. Anyway, thank you for taking my call, and we'll see. I think we gotta plug it along. That Trump's got to win this election, Mike. I think this is crucial for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's in the balance.
I absolutely agree. All right. Well, listen, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're not going to start a new phone call yet because we're coming up here on a commercial break, and we'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show. Here we're going to go back to the phones to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. A couple things. Kamala Harris, she had an affair to further her career in San Francisco when she was a very hard on crime DA. The black community didn't like how hard on crime she was. That might be one of the reasons why Biden picked her. But she had an affair to further her career with Willie Brown, who was indeed married. She was not married. Willie Brown was. So
yes,
in order to get ahead, she was screwing a married guy. She also, and you might want to say maybe she did this to get ahead because, you know, if you're going to be president, you have to check the Israel box. She married a Jewish guy and has made Aliyah, that means going over to Israel and making the pilgrimage. So she may have converted and kept it on the down low. However, she's definitely a neocon. She also recently, I've seen pictures of her where she had apparently one of those failed plastic surgeries that actresses have to make them look like monsters.
Yes.
Have you seen those pictures? They're out there. What's with Kamala Harris? You know, whatever. So she is all about power. You know, things like religion, you know, mean nothing to her. She can be tarred with the same thing that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, because her ancestors were black slaveholders. You know, there's a whole lot of things about her. However, she is tough on crime, or has been. Of course, she'll go with the wind. She has no principles whatsoever. That's one thing. The second thing I want to actually was calling about was I wrote a paper in the Command and General Staff College about the termination of the Pacific War, the Japan War, and how, as a matter of fact, I FOIA'd all the stuff on Operation Downfall, which was Olympic Coronet, you know, the invasion of Japan. So, listen, in my opinion, having studied that in great depth, I don't think that Truman had a choice. There's a couple reasons I would say that. One is, let me make a couple of points really quickly. There were conventional bombings. Tokyo, that was worse.
Yes.
Dresden was worse. You might even say Hamburg was worse in Germany. We had we invaded, I don't believe Japan would have survived as a country, because the plan called for, among other things, and we were already mining the inland waterways. They couldn't distribute food, even if they could grow it. They couldn't import any. They had no oil. But we were also defoliating their crops with Agent Orange-like stuff. That was in the plan. So they would have died by the millions. By the way, the Russians, who declared war on the same day that we dropped the one on Nagasaki, and they swept through Manchuria, something called August Storm, which is a textbook offensive, really. They took something like 1.5 million prisoners of the Japanese. And these were non-combatants, Mike, and they did not return 400,000 of them. So the Russians didn't return 400,000 non-combatants, which was more than Hiroshima and Nagasaki put together. And they were had it gone on, and we had to do Olympic and Coronet, Olympic on November 1st, 1945, Coronet on March 1st, 1946, the Russians would have invaded Hokkaido. They did invade Sakhalin and the Kurils, and they would have invaded Hokkaido. So that's one other thing. The other thing is we spent, I don't know how you adjust for money, but something on the order of 80 billion in today's money on the Manhattan Project. And had anybody died, even if we had just gone with blockade, which means that the ships blockading might have been subject to kamikaze attacks and a lot of sinkings and so on, how are you going to explain that to the mothers, the parents of these soon-to-be dead American servicemen, that we had a $80 billion war-winning weapon in our back pocket that we didn't use? He would have been impeached. Just a couple of arguments. What do you think?
Well, hindsight is always 20/20. And again, I go back to the fact that after Russia indicated they were coming in on the side of the Allies, Japan was ready to surrender. So there wouldn't have been an invasion of the home islands. Basically, as soon as Japan was able to, they were going to surrender. I would have preferred if the bombs had not been used. I prefer if the United States, like the Soviet Union and like Nazi Germany, had failed in their efforts to produce such a weapon. But unfortunately, we've crossed that Rubicon. And, we live in a nuclear world. And again, going back to Denzel Washington, the enemy in the nuclear age is war itself. And look how close we are. And we already have people talking about nuclear strike this and nuclear strike that.
Well, no, and I'm against all that, but we were already in a total war. By the way, it's interesting when you talk to people from Singapore and Indonesia and Malaysia, Korea, and China, they don't have an issue with it at all. 20 million Chinese were killed by the Japanese. They think it's laughable. Pardon me? Yeah, I mean, Nanking was just among others, but 20.
Yes.
We were doing, Unit 731, a Japanese. Yes. Biological warfare thing. 20 million Chinese died at the hands of the Japanese, tons of Koreans. So this isn't even a moral issue with them. They were saying, terminate the war. Whatever it was, terminate it. They don't even look at it as a moral question at all. Interestingly enough, that's just, and I've been stationed in Korea and been to China a couple times, and they don't have an issue with this stuff at all. Either to Singapore or the Philippines. Manila itself just lost 100,000 people just in Manila to Japanese atrocities. So we're the only ones moralizing about it, to be honest with you. And there's a good reason to moralize, but in my opinion, we had no choice to do it.
Okay.
Anyways, all right.
I'm not going to argue with. I mean, what's done is done, and I'm not going to argue over the point here. I wasn't even alive when all of that stuff happened. Neither with you, I don't think. And we can regret certain things that have been done in the past, like we can regret slavery. Doesn't make us responsible for it because we have little to say about it.
Exactly. But we were in a pretty bad war, and those guys took a lot to make those guys give up. But you take any of that off the table, the Russian invasion, the fact, one of the things, Mike, that they had a nuclear program. They weren't really close to getting it, but what they did know for sure was they knew how difficult it was to make fissionable U-235 or plutonium. Their scientists were aware of how long it took the enrichment process. And
yes.
So the second bomb, the Nagasaki bomb, was kind of, among other things, to let them know that, we were pretty far along in the fissionable process, and that they could expect a lot more of this a lot sooner than maybe they had expected.
Well, when Truman went to Potsdam to discuss the post-war fate of Europe with Churchill and Stalin, he dropped a hint with Stalin that we had these bombs and we were going to use them on Japan. And apparently Stalin came back acting like he already knew about it.
well, Klaus Fuchs and you know, the
Rosenbergs.
Rosenbergs and David Greenglass, all that they had spies. You know, he knew as much about it probably as Truman. He probably knew about it before Truman. He also, coming out of Potsdam, he gave the warning. The warning was his reign of ruin, unlike anything the world has ever seen. Speech: if you don't surrender, you can expect a reign of ruin, unlike anything the world has ever seen, is what he said, alluding to this. You know.
Yes.
Anyways, there's a lot of history there. It's interesting, and you know, I love talking about the history of this. I'm big time into it. So.
Well, thank you for the history lesson. And again, you know, we can look back on history and we can make judgment calls. But again, we weren't there, and we don't know what Truman knew. There were certainly a lot of people who wanted to conceal the fact that Japan was ready to surrender prior to the use of the nuclear weapons. And again, Truman's agenda was first of all, he wanted the world to know that we had this weapon and the political will to use it. And
that's definitely true.
The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was as much a message to the Soviet Union as it was to Japan.
Yeah, I think it was even better off for Japan that we dropped them, because I don't know how else we would have. You know, they tried to coup Hirohito after the night. It was something, I think it was, he made his radio broadcast on the 10th, or he made his decision to do the radio broadcast on the 10th. He had a meeting with his high cabinet on the 10th. He made the decision on the 8th, had a meeting with his cabinet where he was going to announce it. The radio message was impending. The word got out, Mike, and of course the military wanted to coup it and tried to coup it. And so it's, you know, but Roosevelt kept all that secret from Truman, had no idea. It was only upon Roosevelt's death that Truman found out about the Manhattan Project.
Yes.
So Stalin was, I'm sure, informed longer and better than even Truman.
Well, Truman knew something was up there because he'd been asking questions and had been warned off, I think, by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, saying, you know, you don't go there. You just don't go there.
Well,
Truman was
talked about this before, Mike. He made his bones as a senator. That's why he got to be the vice presidential candidate, ferreting out big-time corruption. And here they were hiding $80 billion in today's money. You know, and he got wind of it that way. And you're right, they warned him off.
Yeah, and then when he became the president, they walked in with a folder and said, you know, this is what we spent the money on. And the first thing Truman said is, well, don't let anybody else find out about it yet.
Let's just hope they never get used again, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's just hope they never get used again. But anyways, listen, thanks very much.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, I just want to make a few comments to some of the stuff I heard on yesterday's show. And for one, I agree with Dave in Maryland that Dave should take advantage of the American social programs to the fullest extent. He's entitled. He's been a taxpayer all these years. Good for you, Dave. I agree with you. You shouldn't feel any guilt about it. If the government's sending him the extra $600, keep it and buy something with it. Now, one of the things you can buy with it, and you discussed this yesterday with Mark from North Carolina, was buying silver. And I just wanted to say a few things, and actually advice to Mark in North Carolina. I purchased silver, and my timing was excellent. I bought it about a month ago, over a period of time, and actually 2 months ago, where I would buy it from online, reputable dealer called it's not a plug, all right, because I'm going to say several of the companies who I bought from over the years. One was APMEX, right?
Yeah.
And the other, then Kitco, right?
Yes.
And JM Bullion. And back in the day, I used to buy from Blanchard too, back in the 90s. And these are reputable companies where if they, pass off bad silver, their name goes down the dumpster. So these companies have to maintain their credibility and their reputations. And so I would only set foot in a pawn shop, first of all, if I was expert at the ability to spot real silver and to be able to, realize when you have it in your hand that it is real silver, and typically to buy very small quantities, because one of the reasons you would go to a pawn shop is just to buy maybe one coin, and if you go to any of these online purveyors of precious metals, usually you're going to have to eat like a $30 to $50 shipping cost, something in that range. Sometimes if you go over a certain amount, they ship for free. Right?
Yes.
But usually that's going to be in like the $800 to over $1,000 range when you buy silver. And one last thing is, I think the timing to buy silver might be getting a little better because it went down, I think, about $3 an ounce today. It dropped down from 29 to somewhere around 26. At least
Well, you
last I
definitely
checked.
want to keep an eye on that spot price, when you're out there, because a lot of places that sell using websites, they're not always updating their prices. And sometimes you can find, below spot. Other times you need to keep an eye out that you're not being gouged by a price that's way above whatever the current spot price is. By the way, if you want to help RBN and you're interested in getting into precious metals, you might want to call Jeff Bennett, and his phone number is area code 602-799-8214. That's area code 602-799-8214. And if you do your precious metal trading through him, it helps RBN. And we need all the help that we can get right now. So anyway, getting on back to Dave, I have a different point of view. I have no problem with American citizens, legal American citizens, availing themselves of the various social safety nets. But I have a real problem with the attitude of I paid into the system, therefore I have a right to gouge it back out anytime that I can. And that's not really the way the system works. I mean, the money you pay into government goes for things like roads, bridges, dams, infrastructure that you use every single day of your life. And I know a lot of it's been privatized and you have to pay tolls on it and everything. But it's, the federal government isn't a bank, despite pretenses to the other side. And the money that you pay on in, yes, some of it can come back as social services, but it's not really owed to you. Anyway, we got to take another break here for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back blah, 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 blah. Take two. We're going to go right back to the phones to Kenny in Florida. Hello, Kenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Did you get your tongue twisted? Did you get your tongue tangled?
Oh, I can blame it on the medications they've got me on. So everything leaves colored trails.
Rented lips.
Yeah.
Anyway, you kind of stole my thunder on this one a little bit earlier, but a couple of days ago I was watching. I saw an ad on YouTube, I think it was, where Joe Biden says if you sign up at my website or whatever, you'll be able to know who. I'm sorry. He basically said he's going to be choosing his running mate, and if you wanted to know who she was, then you could just sign up at his website and you'll be notified before the press. Of course, the keyword right there is who she was. So that was a giveaway right there that it was going to be a woman, unless he made another gaffe or was lying. Which
they've been saying all along it was going to be a woman.
So they have. Yeah, and then I went to Joe Biden's website and I saw, oh my goodness, they gave it away, Biden Harris. But then that's when you announced that. But just after I called in, you announced that that she was the pick. So you stole my thunder. No, I'm just kidding. And as far as Pelosi for president, those apples are going to leave an unspeakably repulsive taste in my mouth.
Well, I'm afraid so. I mean, this whole thing is just getting so weird. I mean, Kamala Harris identifies as an African American, but she isn't. She was born in Oakland, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Her parents are Jamaican and Indian, but she's running around saying, "I'm African American. I'm African American." No, she's not.
Yeah, I saw the picture on the website. As soon as it said, I'm like, what? So. What a joke. Next thing you know, she's going to identify as a cat or something, or
She's going to
Tyrannosaurus
identify
Rex.
as Cherokee.
As what?
As Cherokee.
Cherokee or some other
Yeah, some other Native American tribe.
Boy, that's yeah. That is pretty weird. I don't even know if Obama was 100% black. He was like a mix of black, like black, like black and white.
Well, his mother was pretty much white, and his father, Frank Marshall Davis, was sort of mixed as well.
So what? Did he identify as black too to get the black vote?
Apparently, yes. At one point, he identified himself as a foreign student to get preferential treatment at university.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's interesting. So, yeah, next thing you know, someone's going to identify as Hispanic and black to get both votes. I don't know.
No, true. Amazing.
Could be. Anyway, that's all I had. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Your timing is perfect. There's the music. We're going to take a break for station identification. We will be right back with hour number 2. And welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And let's go right now to Bobby in Florida. Bobby, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Bobby, you're on the air.
Hello? I think you got me, Mike.
Who have I got? We already did Bobby, Mark. So all right, this is Mark in North Carolina. Okay, Mark, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
First of all, just to make sure you're all right. We were a little concerned about you. You hadn't been on for the last couple of days, So,
well, like I said, it was doctor stuff. They changed an appointment on me on Friday, and yesterday they said you got to go in for tests or you're going to have to wait till November. So I went in and they stuck me with all kinds of needles, and I got bruises all over my body now. Not all of which I could show you on the camera, so.
Well, hopefully everything's all right, that's the main thing. Anyway, Mike, I just want to say about Kamala Harris. I'm really started. If I was a real conspiracy theorist, I'd wonder whether the deal is to get Trump in there for another 4 years, period, by both the Democrats and the Republicans, for whatever reason. Because this is probably the worst choice Biden could have made, because this woman is polarizing, the most polarizing of all the candidates on the left, not on the right. When I talk about the left, I'm talking about the actual left, the populist left, anti-war left. I go a lot of times to the sites, right? And they're, and some of them, the shows, like you take some, I don't know if you ever heard of Caleb Maupin. He's on YouTube quite a bit. He's also on RT. He's also a reporter on RT. He's an admitted communist, okay? I mean, he makes no bones about it. I mean, he talks about the history of communism and everything else. At the same time, he doesn't believe in overthrowing the government or any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he argues that it's the best system out there, okay? He has said Kamala Harris, of all people, is out and out evil. He says she is out and out evil. And I see other people like Graham Elwood, Nico House, Conversation Couch, the Convo Couch. I'm not sure the names of those two on the Convo Couch. These are rational but real hardcore, leftists. They believe in Medicare for all, and government should let's say our natural resources and stuff like that. But they're not for overthrowing for violence either. They're all against this woman. They think this woman is horrible. And Tulsi Gabbard, of course, exposed her during the debates, knocked her right out. All Trump has to do is play that debate right there. He probably wouldn't have to do anything else. I mean, it's like I said, it's almost as if Biden wants to ensure that he's not going to win. Maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he doesn't even know what he's doing. But I don't know who would have advised him to pick her. Not that I don't want Biden to win, obviously. As bad as Trump is, like I went through that thing with Tom last week.
Mm-hmm,
As bad as Biden is, as bad as Trump is, the Democrats are that much worse, especially the Democrats of today. So Trump disgusts me more and more too. He puts this guy Elliot Abrams in now as in charge of Iran affairs. This guy should be in prison. He shouldn't be doing anything. Elliot Abrams, he was convicted in the Iran-Contra affair, and then I think pardoned by H.W. Bush. This guy's a convicted felon. He's a war criminal, and yet Trump puts him in charge of that. So I am really disgusted because I don't like Trump. He's disappointed me very badly. I think he's a horrible president, but I'll be down. But you can't get more horrible than Biden and Obama before. Biden and Obama were bad enough. Now Biden is a total, he totally doesn't even know what he's doing. He barely knows what planet he's on. And this woman is a horror show. So obviously I'm going to vote for Trump. I got no choice. Unless somehow Ventura gets in there, and but it's probably too late even if he did.
I think he's missed the deadline.
All right, so there it is. That's basically the choice right now. The guy on the Green Party, I think his name is Howie Hawkins. He's nothing but another neoliberal, warmongering neoliberal. And I'm not even sure who. I think some woman who was running a Libertarian Party. From what I understand, is no bargain. On top of that, John Bolton says he's now a member of the Libertarian Party. So what does that tell you? That tells you to stay away from the Libertarians. So basically, there really is not much of a choice, Mike. They pretty much narrowed it down.
No, there really isn't. And, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm supporting Trump primarily because I don't want Biden. But then back in 2016, I supported Trump because I didn't want Hillary Clinton. And I wish we had a better choice.
Yeah, well, I really had hopes for Trump in 2016. I believed what he was saying. I said, wow, this guy, hopefully this guy's really means what he said. And unfortunately, he didn't. He put the same so-called swamp, I call it sewer, right in there and restocked the sewer on top of it with a creature like Elliot Abrams and Bolton and Pompeo. These people are garbage, plain and simple garbage. So, but again, this is a choice. It's like I said. Well, I'll give you another example. If I was going to run head on into a speeding train or an 18-wheeler, which would be worse? I'd say the train would probably be worse. You might have some kind of a shot with an 18-wheeler of surviving and maybe getting in one piece, but you'd have none if you hit the speeding train. So that's pretty much what it comes down to between these two parties today. You want to be hit by the speeding train or the 18-wheeler? Terrible, but unfortunately, Mike, that's what it comes down to. Hey, by the way, the guy was talking about silver. I think if I'm going to buy silver, I'm going to buy from some local people. Okay, I understand it pretty good around here. So I'm still not sure whether I'm even going to buy it or not. I don't know if it's really worth it or not. It's not that I got a lot of money to spend. And I called the online places, and they said you have to buy $10,000 to $15,000 worth of either gold or silver now. I don't got $10,000 to $15,000 to spend on either of those. Nope. He said we can't sell you any less because it is a shortage. So if I'm going to buy anything, it's going to be from somebody local. Meanwhile, another good thing is to stock up on ammunition because it may be needed. On top of that, it may be worth something. That if it really hits the fan.
Great barter item. A great barter item.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know why they call the little 1 ounce glass of whiskey a shot?
No, not really.
Because during the gold rush, the price of that 1 ounce glass of whiskey was one bullet. A shot.
No kidding. Wow.
Give me a shot of whiskey.
Oh, all right.
Here's your bullet. Here's your whiskey.
I got enough ammunition as it is, but maybe it's good to buy some more, maybe, because that might be more important than either gold or silver.
Oh, absolutely. Learn how to build a still.
Yeah. exactly. And grow some food. That's the best thing. And it looks to me like we're headed in that
Grow
direction.
corn.
By
Put
the
it
way,
in the still.
yeah. When we would talk about now the vaccines, I'm disgusted with Putin, by the way, what he's doing in Russia, you know?
Yeah.
But again, that's there and this is here. I think if they try to force a vaccine on the American people, that's going to be the start of the Civil War. Not so much the left-right confrontations and all the nonsense with the so-called BLM, I say so-called because they're mostly white, and the Antifa. I don't think that. I think the real start of the Civil War is if one or two things happen. They come after, they try to vaccinate us, or they even, let's say, try to say, okay, you can't go buy anything in a store if you don't vaccinate. I think that'll start off the Civil War right there. And or, of course, if they come after the guns, that'll start the Civil War.
Well, I'm concerned, especially given recent events in Belarus. We already know going into the November election there's going to be massive rigging. And if Biden wins, and there is very obvious, undeniable evidence that the election was rigged, we could see rioting in the streets of America the same way that we're seeing in Belarus right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Personally, I like the guy in Belarus. I like what he did with the lockdowns. He said, no, we're not going to lock down. We're not going to do any of that stuff. Just drink vodka and play soccer. And from what I understand, it had very little of the virus there either. So, I mean, to me, that's probably one of the reasons nobody likes him. It seems like he's not liked by the West, by NATO and all that. He's also not liked by Putin. So, you know. But that tells me he's probably doing something right. Nobody likes him, especially today, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Other than that, that's pretty much it, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We'll let you go here. And before I take the next call, just another reminder, because somebody already emailed me in, the precious metal dealer that will help out RBN with your order is named Jeff Bennett, and his phone number, grab a pencil or a pen or scratch it into the desk with a paper clip, area code 602-799-8214. We're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Michael. Well, you know, whenever you're gone, the Rivero Rangers get worked up because their captain's out of action. So we like an update, you know, when we hear from you.
Well, I'm an old guy. You know, I'm turning 68 here in a couple of weeks. And, you know, I'm dealing, you know, with old guy medical issues. And the doctors say I'm going to get over this, you know, but it's just going to take a while. But I should be back to my normal, energetic, obnoxious, annoying self soon.
Michael, you got a lot of left in the tank if you were on half speed. You know what I mean? You'll spin circles around Biden.
All right. Well, then write me in on the ballot in November. And I'm going to name my vice presidential running mate. It's the Lady Claire.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No other better mate to have.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wanted to add on to what Mark was saying, and I wanted to, you know, just let Paul know for his own information that Monex and Kitco and those guys, they have had some very specious dealings from time to time, so you might want to watch them. And I do know Jeffrey Bennett is a awesome, excellent source. He is an awesome source, and it's no bull, no punches pulled. I mean, your stuff's there, it's there on time, and Jeff is really excellent with everything from the history of whatever metal you're buying to the delivery. So that is a very excellent choice, and to help RBN is always wonderful.
Well, somebody just sent me an article about how China got a bunch of gold bars from Fort Knox, directly from Fort Knox, that turned out to have tungsten cores. So now I think Americans really have a right to know what happened to their gold stored in Fort Knox. Did somebody really rip off Fort Knox?
Yeah, well, and Ron Paul tried to audit that too for quite a bit of time, and we didn't get very far.
No, it didn't.
But
they opened one vault door and said, see, there's gold inside there. You can't touch it. You can't analyze it. You can't assay it. Just take our word for it. It's real gold. Slam. Get out of here.
Yeah, and that's a sad commentary, because something so detrimental to our economy should it should be like an annual event. I mean, that audit should be there with people clapping, and it should be like on Wall Street. At the end of the day when they rally, that's what that audit of Fort Knox should be like.
Yeah, because technically that's our money. That's our gold in there, and it should be audited, but it hasn't had a full audit in something like 50 years.
Very, very sad. It's very sad. But I wanted to comment. I really like this Kamala Harris pick, because what you got is another overly powered black female with an abusive history of power. And I think it's great for the times, because you could fit her right in with, what's the one in Chicago, Lightly, or whatever her name is there. And then you got Bottoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got
I thought it should be gone with Tammy
Atlanta,
Duckworth, but that's just my opinion.
So I mean, you got a real cast going there that I think really is really good for Trump to beat up on. However, I think by him picking her, I think that just absolutely sealed the deal to see Hillary come flying in, because like what you commented on, once they realize she can't ever be president, even if Biden something happened to him.
Well,
they're
if
gonna
something
change
happens, let me throw a little nightmare your way. What happens if Biden is forced to step down for his mental issues? Kamala Harris becomes president, and she appoints Hillary as vice president.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's so many ways you can deal the cards, right, Michael?
Yep.
And that's the sad thing, that nothing is definitive like we would like to see it be, but unfortunately, that's where we're at with these elections and these times we're living in now, where direct disobeying of the Constitution is the norm. But I really like this, because what you have is a hypocritical black woman who's manufactured or withheld evidence that would vindicate people that she's put away, who you got to believe the majority of them are black. So you have that dynamic going, and then you also have her as being a hypocrite, saying, well, I was smoking marijuana and listening to Snoop Dogg. So, what else can you say? But every day you get up, it's another crazy scenario of events. And
Yes.
I liked what Peter, always like Peter's calls, but, I wanted to add one thing to that, and I may be incorrect, but my understanding on the Japanese and dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was that the real telltale sign was in the negotiations, when the U.S. said, and more or less, you ain't seen nothing yet, because when we drop this third bomb, it's headed for Tokyo. But the only catch was they only had 2 bombs, and they already had used them.
Yeah, again, that enrichment process took a lot of time and energy, and I mean, if you look at the size of the facilities there, and how much resources they took to get the enrichment going, and that's always, of course, been the big problem, is the most efficient way to enrich uranium. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. They built only 3 bombs. There was the Trinity bomb, which was a plutonium device. There was the little boy uranium bomb, which they knew was going to go off. The big trick was to make sure it didn't go off until they wanted it to. And then there was the Fat Man, which was essentially the deployable version of the Trinity bomb.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, for that date era, how phenomenal. But the process took so long.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, Michael, how, and I'm sure you probably know this, but how long was the development from the time, when engineering and studies began and everything like that, before the first bomb was actually in production? You know how long that was?
That was quite a long time, as I recall.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So it wasn't quite so easy to just throw one together and ship it out there and drop it off wherever you wanted. No,
the hard part was making the weapons grade uranium and plutonium, and they contracted with several universities to do that. And then, of course, they built the Oak Ridge facility, where they had the they had a fancy name for it, the Teleatrons, I think, or something like that was called, which were these gigantic magnetic separators. This was before uranium hexafluoride and centrifuges were discovered to be a more efficient means of enrichment. But one of the reasons why they started dumping fluoride into our drinking water was to get rid of the surplus fluoride that was being generated by the uranium hexafluoride process.
Yeah, exactly. And what a fascinating process to hear of all this and the timetable. Michael, it's great to hear you're okay. We're glad to have you back, of course, and keep up the great show. Thank you very much.
As long as I can. We got to take a break for commercials. We got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and Fox News is still going on about Biden picks Kamala Harris as running mate, and they've got all the talking heads out there. This has been, half an hour already, and that's still the only news they're carrying. I'm sorry, it's not that big a deal. Don Adams said it was the most boring job in the government. Okay, let's see. Somebody sent me an email. Kamala Harris has violated Title VIII for aiding and harboring illegals all over California. That's definitely true. If she were convicted, she would be ineligible for the presidency and by extension, the vice presidency. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Starfire in Pennsylvania. Hello, Starfire. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, well, I was going to say about the lady, but maybe I misunderstood you. Did you say she is African American and Native American?
No, she identifies as African American, but she was born in Oakland, California, and her parentage is Jamaican and Indian, as in East Indian.
Okay, because I was going to say we have to carry cards. If these people that keep saying they need to get their cards, and if they don't have one, don't say they is. And another thing I was going to talk to you about, our neighborhood now, we have got what they call a neighborhood watch, that
Yes.
if anything's go down, we're all getting together and protecting our neighborhood. And a lot of people out there can do the same thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say Neighborhood Watch has been around for a long time now, and mostly, as the name implies, it was just about keeping an eye out and calling the police when necessary. And you got to be very careful about crossing that line into vigilantism. But with police departments being cut and defunded across the country, it seems almost inevitable that neighborhoods are going to form their own little localized block militias, if you will, to try and discourage criminals from coming in and being criminals.
Now, hold on, my husband's going to talk to you.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, this is our better half, because the time to coordinate is now because, you're not going to be on the air. Nobody's going to pull the plug, that. So we can't coordinate. So that's what she was trying to convey.
Well, I thought they'd pulled the plug this morning when I got up and couldn't log into my website, but that turned out to be a technical issue.
Yeah, we just never know. You got to be prepared now. Most of the people, we're getting neighbors together with the same mindset, so we should fare pretty well.
Well, good
Especially
for you.
Like if Andy Bob comes to town, they'll have a problem.
Have a good organization, have a good set of rules right up at front, and just remind everybody this is not the Wild West. This is our homes that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And don't pull the trigger unless you absolutely have no other choice.
That's reasonable. You're absolutely right. Yes. Okay, Mike, we'll let you go then. Thank you for the time. You take care.
Well, thank you for the phone call. And in this age when we're seeing police departments defunded and disbanded, it's almost inevitable we're going to see local communities organizing for their own self-protection, because we've already seen in cities where the police departments are being cut back by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, crime is going through the roof. We're being turned into, a crimocracy, if you will. That's not good. Okay, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Getting on back to the news here. Apparently, Lebanon has declared a 2-week state of emergency in Beirut, followed up by the government's resignation. And they've got massive riots over there. And you have to wonder what the thought process is going in there, because basically half the city got blown up by this explosion of the ammonium nitrate. And then they're going to what? Burn down the other half of it in their displeasure? But anyway, apparently the government has stepped down and the riots are still going on. So there's something weird about what's happening over there. Iran sends humanitarian aid to Lebanon after the blast. Good, they're going to need it here. And apparently Lebanon has less than a month's grain reserves. Fortunately, they have enough flour stockpile to avoid a crisis. Over in Portland, the rioting has spread to residential areas. Apparently, a woman was confronted in her home late last week as rioting continued in Oregon's largest city with no end in sight. And Fox News is still talking about Kamala Harris and nothing at all about what's going on in Portland. You know, the more and more I look at the corporate news these days, and I look at it mostly to find out what are they not reporting on. There's a lot they're not reporting on. They don't want you paying attention to what's happening in Portland or Chicago for that matter. Anyway. Let's see, Seattle. I wasn't paying attention. Time for another commercial break. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We will be right back. And welcome back to our show. We're going to go right back to the phones here to Mark in New York. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. It's good to talk to you. And I would agree with you, doctors, that you are getting better. Because I can hear it in your voice.
Thank you.
And I would suggest some Yahoo meditation videos when you go to sleep at night for 5 or 10 minutes. They'll go all night for 8 hours, but that'll probably keep flare up. So I wouldn't recommend that.
No, I don't want to keep
gone, yeah, I hear you. I while you were gone, I just wanted to call up about Sunday. You know, I TiVo some of these shows. I don't get to watch all of them, but one thing that interests me that involved, it turns into the peddling, the influence. I know guys have called in. You've mentioned how this corporate media and stuff they talk about, and this influence that they have, and you know, the people making vaccines are behind it, and the medicines, and they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. And anyway, so he introduces one of the segments with these two doctors that I see on a lot. This is John King, and he says, now, for what you see, is it correct, or would it be horribly wrong? And I would just think it would be the other opposite would be, would it be correct or room for improvement against one of the typical vaccines and everything exploding? But the two doctors, I was like, who are these people, you know? And then I see the one's Megan Rainey and the other one's Ashish Jha, and they both, their wiki page almost read the same, Columbia, Harvard, and this Harvard School of Public Health, which when I looked into it and drilled down into that on the wiki page, it's like a Ayn Rand nightmare, you know? And there's this guy, there's this guy that just invested with them back in 2014, this Chan, who he's an entrepreneur that studied radiation and stuff, and now he has a private equity group, and he donated this $350 million to Harvard University, and they renamed it Harvard Chan School of Public Health. And I think that's influencing. I just want to say that he has all these string of Vaxicor. He's got like interest. He's on the director of the boards on these vaccine companies, and he has private equity firm. That's a lot of influence. And on top of that, he put in the Harvard Square where he lives another $500 million. And I'm just thinking that's peddling influence. That's reciprocity. And these two people, at this segment, there was no, at least on Fox, I'll say on Fox, they'll have both sides. They'll have a couple of guys arguing with each other, not all the time, but on CNN, I don't see it. And I just think this is a nightmare waiting to happen, peddling influence with this Harvard of public health. And Megan Randy, I could just say she's also a doctor who's a gun grabber, and she, and that's all I've seen. But she fought for getting PPE stuff in there, and doing a some defense initiative to get the private companies to get more supplies to the hospitals. So they're both trained, they're smart, they've done well in school, but they're both got their degrees or their advanced degrees from this Harvard of public health, which is to me it's a scare. To me, I don't think now that this guy is giving them $350,000 and their webpage or their wiki page talks that we're going to be focusing on the pandemics and all that stuff. It's right there, and I just think that I've seen these guys on a lot, and that's my point. That CNN is even worse, and I think we should be concerned about this kind of peddling influence and the people behind it, where it's right there on Wiki. You don't even have to drill down. It's right there. People are spending money, peddling influence. This guy owns Medicor, Vaxacor, all these. I was like, how did they do that? And it says right on their page, we are pushing this agenda. So I just thought that's all I wanted to say for today.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you for that information, and thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to take a call, and I hope I'm not going to botch this. Gurnalovana in California. Hello. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I am being targeted with the electromagnetic radiation.
Well, I think they're also targeting your telephone because I can barely understand you.
Yeah, I think so too. They are listening all the time to me. And, they mock me, they laugh at me. Well, I don't know what to do. It's been
I can't imagine why on earth they'd be laughing at you.
What is it? Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine why on earth anyone would laugh at you.
I don't know. They're trying to make me get a reaction from me, make me angry or something, so I can lose my mind, so they can label me as an insane person or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing you got to do is you got to put that telephone down, because that's one vector by which they get that EM radiation right into your brain. So thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Bobby in Florida. It looks like we did skip over you before, Bobby, and I apologize for that. What's on your mind?
That's okay, Mike. I dropped the phone. I was working. But I was wondering if you saw the interview with HBO that they had with Trump. They brought up the Maxwell thing again, and I can't believe I was hoping he'd maybe backpedal or something, but he was almost like saying she's innocent. He was like, I couldn't believe what was coming out of his mouth. He says, well, her boyfriend died in jail, and we don't know if he died or not, so I wish her well. I wish everyone well. And he threw his hands out like he's playing an accordion. I'm like, oh, my God, we're done. We got two pedophiles running for president. Oh my God! But there's hope, though. I was in Tampa. I was in Hillsborough County last night, and I seen little pee-wee football teams playing, and their parents were there, and no mask nowhere. A cop in the parking lot. It was so nice. I went to 3 or 4 stores today with no mask out here in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa area, Planet City, Tampa, Brandon. It was very nice. It was last night. It just gave me the goosebumps just seeing all them people with no mask, letting your kids play, cop in the parking lot. It's looking good. In some places you wouldn't even think that this crap's going on, and I just hope that keeps going. Well, I thought I'd just tell you about that interview. I'm surprised no one's talking about it. And if it was my own brother who was accused of all this stuff, I wouldn't say anything other than he's going to get what he deserves. That's the most heinous thing you can do. And look at she was already sued, so she's some kind of guilt on this woman. And then Rivero. This whole thing is sick. I'll let you go, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call here and getting on back to the local news. And apparently Trump is now having a press conference weighing in on the fact that Biden has announced Harris as his running mate. And again, no coverage about what's going on in Portland. No coverage about what's going on in Chicago. We're being mushroomed. Okay, we're being kept in the dark and fed garbage. That's what we're or if you want the other term, we're being conditized. We're trying to make the news to keep our attention here on Harris. This has been running for what? Close to an hour. Yes, it's Kamala Harris. Let's get on to some other news now. Almost enough to make me turn back to CNN, but not quite. All right, anyway, getting on back to Louisville. Apparently, Black Lives Matter activists are demanding protection money from local businesses. Black Power activists in Louisville, Kentucky, which is just over that away a little bit, are holding heavily armed marches in the streets, threatening to burn the city down and using mafia tactics to demand extortion payments from local businesses in the name of advancing their racial interests. And by the way, there is nothing new. There's been a lot of these so-called movements that are out there. You know, we're bringing democracy, we're ending racism, we're saving the baby seals. And then what you find out going on in the background is, you know, if you will give us money to support our organization, we won't tell them that you're clubbing baby seals in your back room. But I'm not clubbing baby seals in the back room. Doesn't matter. If we tell them that you are, oh boy, are you going to be in trouble? All right, here's your money. All righty, let's see. Do Black Americans support defunding the police? Surprisingly, polls are showing only 80% want the cops, over 80% want the cops to stay and keep patrolling their communities. It's only this tiny minority that want the police to go away. Gee, I wonder what the tiny minority does when the cops aren't around. Despite Black Lives Matter protests raging across the country and moves to defund police departments or cut back their budgets, a new poll suggests Black citizens don't support the efforts to remove cops from the streets. The Gallup poll released a week ago was conducted throughout July and involved over 36,000 adults across the United States. 81% of Black respondents said they want police to spend the same amount of time in their neighborhoods that they already do or have even more of a presence. The results are similar across races, with 88% of white Americans, 83% of Hispanic Americans, and 72% of Asian Americans all saying the same thing. Well, I would like to go back to a nation in which the police were out there fighting crime and not making sure that we weren't endangering the local species. Make sure that we're wearing our masks here. Another poll is showing 84% of Americans are blaming the corporate media for political divisions in the country. The Knights Foundation Gallup poll revealed that 86% of respondents say they see a great deal or a fair amount of political bias in the media. They're not hiding it very well, are they? This compares to 62% who felt the same way all the way back in 2007. 2007, before the big financial crash. All right, let's talk about COVID-19. It's still here. It's still being exploited shamelessly here. Story that's coming on out of stationgossip.com. COVID-19 patients with and without symptoms are equally contagious. Asymptomatic people have just as much virus in their noses, mouths, and lungs as those who cough and run fevers. The World Health Organization has admitted in their June 5th, 2020 guidance that there's no direct evidence masks prevent viral infection. Even though the masks do not prevent the spread of viral infections, the WHO still makes a case for universal mask wearing, citing benefits such as reduced stigmatization of people caring for COVID-19 patients in non-clinical setting, making people feel like they're doing something to help, serving as a reminder to be compliant with other measures, and economic benefits for people who can sew homemade masks. So they're basically saying they don't really do any good, but we're going to keep on doing it because it looks good. It makes you look like you care. It's started a whole new cottage industry, and that's good for the economy. Well, I'm sorry. I'm in favor of not stigmatizing people, and I'm in favor of cottage industries, but this is ridiculous. You know, this is like somebody saying that if you wear silk flowers in your hair, that you'll head off an alien invasion, as in Space Alien. And therefore, we go on doing it, even though there's no real threat of a space alien invasion. We're going to do it because the people who make silk flowers get an economic benefit. It really is silly. Over in Great Britain, it's getting a little more extreme. An internal government guide meant to inform local councils and town authorities on possible strategies to deal with the rising coronavirus cases explored scenarios wherein demolition of contaminated homes would be allowed. In other words, they're going to bulldoze them down, burn what's left over. So, anyway. Apparently, according to this article from Investment Watch blog, Biden is going to skip the DNC itself. Now, their convention supposedly starts Sunday. That's why he had to get the announcement for the running mate out there. And this article saying Democrats aren't really campaigning, and at this point they're not. Biden has announced Kamala Harris as his VP. Biden is not going to be at the DNC itself. He's going to basically be there virtually from his basement. And this article asks, are the Democrats planning to lose? No, they're planning on stealing. We saw the same thing back in 2016. Hillary put on a token campaign. Showed up at places like bicycle repair shops, and she couldn't even fill those. Meanwhile, Trump was filling these sports venues like crazy. Because they were going to steal it. And they came awfully close to doing it. This time they're going to try even harder. And Trump had his opportunity to stop it, and he didn't. And I don't want Biden to win. But if he does, I'm going to stick my tongue out at the White House and say, you blew it. You had your chance, and you blew it. Over at CNN, political analyst April Ryan says she can't wait to see armed forces eject Trump from the White House. Man. Well, you know, they're not hiding their bias anymore. Better than 80% of Americans see the bias. Apparently, Donald Trump is considering doing his convention speech where he accepts the nomination from the White House virtually because of COVID-19. And Pelosi is saying he can't do that. Very wrong for Trump to consider the White House as a venue for his convention speech and claims it won't happen. Well, I'm not aware of any rules that say that he can't make a speech from the White House. Certainly he has. Somebody may point out that he's using public property, meaning the White House, for a political campaign, which you're not supposed to do. But I'm sure from Pelosi's point of view, making the speech from the White House is going to remind everybody he is the incumbent president. That's why she's making up a stink. And this is where it gets really significant, and I'm glad to see this happening. Apparently, and this is an article over in cuzblue.com, Republicans are outpacing Democrats in voter registration, gaining in key battleground states. The only way we will defeat the theft of the 2020 election is for everybody listening to my voice to get out there, register to vote, and go on out and vote at a polling place on the election. Don't vote by mail. That's the vector by which they're going to try and steal this. And we're already seeing these stories about ballots that are being submitted without postmarks. How can that happen? How can something go through a post office in theory and show up without any postmarks at all? They're going to steal this election, and they're not even trying to hide it. And that's why I'm concerned. Looking at what's happening in Belarus, we could see rioting in the streets of America if Biden steals this election from Trump. And I'm not 100% comfortable supporting Trump because he's been a terrible, terrible disappointment. But right now, he definitely is the best that we've got. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. And I just got an interesting little email. I think that they will get rid of Biden around the end of September and move Harris to presidential candidate with Clinton as vice president. That way they can have 1 month before election to get everybody excited and not enough time for the opposition to mount an effective response. Interesting theory. They could try. I think something that dramatic would probably throw the Democratic Party into complete disarray. But then if they're planning on stealing the election with vote by mail anyway, it wouldn't be a factor. This is definitely going to be one for the history books, whatever happens in November. Speaking of November, President Trump wants to debate Joe Biden sooner than September 29th. He's requested an additional debate to bring the total to 4. He wants one debate to take place before the mail-in ballots begin, because otherwise a lot of votes will be cast before the people have a chance to see how Biden actually handles himself in a debate against the incumbent United States president. And Trump is saying the only problem he has with the debate is, it is ridiculously late. Should have been happening, officially the candidates aren't the candidates until after the conventions, but that'll be end of this month. And to wait another whole month for a debate, I agree that's ridiculous. Not that I'm expecting a debate would be anything but a foregone conclusion. All right, turning to the international news, and I know we're almost out of time here. The U.S. Navy has seized an Iran-bound ship carrying pharmaceutical supplies off of China. And apparently a Navy warship seized a transport ship near the Chinese port of Qingdao on Wednesday morning. Is that an act of piracy? I mean, we're not in a declared war either with China or with Iran. And so I think under maritime law, the United States Navy just committed an act of piracy. They boarded a ship without the owner of that ship's permission in order to confiscate its cargo. Now, the ship was reportedly en route to Iran, loaded with medical manufacturing components, specifically zeolite, which Fars News Agency says is needed for manufacturing oxygen concentrators for coronavirus-infected patients. Only one imported part is used for production of oxygen concentrators, which is zeolite, and we are forced to purchase it from France and import it to the country through several intermediaries. We're not even dealing with the material that's used for weapons. We're dealing with medical supplies. We're dealing with the one component Iran needs to deal with the coronavirus. In a very loosey-goosey, roundabout way, this almost is an act of biological warfare. To deny Iran the means to treat their coronavirus patients. And as I said, under maritime law, I think it's an act of piracy. So maybe it's time to take down that stars and stripes pennant there on the transom and hoist the Jolly Roger. Hoist the skull and bones. We're going to be pirates now. The U.S. Navy pirates. What they are. I'm sorry to say, but I'm pretty sure that's an act of piracy. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. I will be back tomorrow live, I promise. And stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.